Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. I am Olivia Rios, Director of Operations and Programs at the Los Angeles Latina Chamber of Commerce. And this evening, we have a wonderful program for you. We have our signature program, Faces of Resilience, Reinventing Through Resiliency. And it's an honor to be here before you with friends, colleagues, amistades, dignitaries, and to open up our program, I'd like to invite one of our dignitaries who is here with us. El favor de hacernos su presencia a Rosalinda Domínguez Flores, who is the congresista de México. Pues aquí si nos puede decir unas palabras. Este programa de hoy es dedicado a las mujeres que siempre nos estamos reinventando, porque tenemos situaciones en nuestras vidas que nos hacen más fuertes, nos hacen luchadores, y también queremos dar el gusto de que todos estén aquí con nosotros y también con su familia. Por favor. Gracias.
Para mí es un honor estar con ustedes, mujeres talentosas, pero sobre todo, como mujeres somos el eje de la familia. Somos hijas, somos madres, abuelas, todo. Y como mujeres, yo siempre lo he dicho, sabemos administrar muy bien, tanto el recurso que llega, a veces las situaciones de algunas u otras mujeres que hemos vivido diferentes etapas, sabemos administrarlo bien. Y hoy que tenemos la gran oportunidad de estar llevando la voz de cada sector a uno, pues, en la máxima tribuna del país, que es México, y sobre todo hoy que ustedes, a lo mejor muchos han tenido la gran oportunidad de ese gran éxito que han logrado en otro país, se les reconoce doblemente. Y nosotros hemos hecho lo propio en el Congreso porque hemos trabajado para el bienestar. Hoy mi visita es precisamente para escucharlos. Vamos a tener varias actividades, pero algo muy importante, el tema migratorio, que tanto, pues es un tema que está latente, tanto en México como acá en Estados Unidos. Entonces, tenemos que darle la certeza jurídica, tener esa gran comunicación. Lo hemos hecho con el embajador que nos ha visitado en México, Ken Salazar, y hemos platicado de muchas cosas. Hemos platicado de un gran proyecto también que tenemos en el Istmo de Tehuantepec, Oaxaca, que es el mejor proyecto de esta administración, que se denomina y se llama el Corredor Interoceánico del Istmo. Lo hemos trabajado desde el Plan Alternativo de Nación. El 16 de julio le da personalidad jurídica al presidente, en la cual pues ya tiene presupuesto. Tuve la oportunidad de estar en la legislatura pasada y apoyar a que ese proyecto se hiciera realidad. Primero, pues se avaló el presupuesto para el proyecto. Después se suprimieron todas las curvas porque el tren pues corría a 15, 20 kilómetros y pues era muy despacio. De ahí avalamos 10,000 millones de pesos para que se rehabilitaran todas las vías del tren. Logramos que la parte de Medias Aguas a Coatzacoalcos lo comprara el gobierno porque estaba concesionado. Otro parque, tenemos 5 parques eólicos, los más grandes de Latinoamérica están en Oaxaca, en el Istmo. Y gracias a Dios logramos, con la austeridad, acabando con la corrupción, que se comprara el parque que tenía Iberdrola en el Istmo de Tehuantepec, Oaxaca, en México. Pero no solamente eso, hoy hemos avalado a ley constitucional programas sociales. Muchos a lo mejor dirán, pero ¿por qué ayudan a que tiene que haber derrama económica abajo? ¿Por qué? Porque pues gracias a esa derrama muchos adultos pues tienen una pensión mensual. Todos los jóvenes en México ahora tienen una beca que anteriormente no lo tenían, a veces no tenían ni para el pasaje. Hoy cada mes se les da 800 pesos, no es mucho, pero ya lo tienen. Ya no hay ese pretexto de que no se puedan trasladar. Hoy todos los discapacitados tienen también una pensión, porque pues la familia está a cargo de ellos y pues se les está dando lo más necesario. Estamos sembrando vida, ¿por qué? Porque el campo lo tenemos que levantar. Hoy una familia puede recibir 6,000 pesos, pero esa misma familia y ese mismo terreno se puede incluir toda una familia, 6, 7 personas, para sembrar vida en su terreno. Eso ha hecho que se incremente el recurso en cada familia, pero no solamente eso, tenemos que enseñarles a que tienen que trabajar el campo. Estamos implementando ganadería verde, programas regionales para los cítricos, la naranja, todos los sectores de la población se están haciendo proyectos regionales. Ya tenemos, ahora ya el presidente recorrió las vías del tren, se van a hacer 10 parques industriales. Hoy que ustedes tienen esa capacidad, esa inteligencia, que gracias a Dios son empresarios exitosos, mujeres exitosas, queremos que inviertan en su estado. Queremos que estos empresarios de toda Latinoamérica hoy inviertan en lo que es este corredor que va a unir a 2 continentes, al Océano Pacífico, al Atlántico. Ahí tenemos todo, el petróleo, el aire, gracias a Dios es natural, tenemos los 2 litorales y como decía el embajador de Estados Unidos, ahora nuestra mercancía se va a poder trasladar del norte de Estados Unidos hacia el istmo de Tehuantepec, donde tenemos los 304 kilómetros de la franja. Y va a ser una alternativa porque se van a ahorrar 25 días ahora de no irse hasta el canal de Panamá, sino que se van a quedar en México. Todas esas embarcaciones que anteriormente no podían llegar, ahora van a cargar todo el combustible en lo que es Salina Cruz. ¿Por qué? Porque se está haciendo un gasoducto ahí. Entonces, ni una obra se va a quedar inconclusa. El presidente va a inaugurar tanto el puerto de Salina Cruz, que ya tiene la capacidad para recibir esas embarcaciones, pero también paralelo a eso se está haciendo la carretera transísmica con todos los libramientos, se rehabilitó las vías del tren y decirles que esto va a unir desde Guatemala, todo lo que es Centroamérica, a través del tren, va a entrar a lo que es el Tren Maya. Ya se rehabilitó la refinería Dos Bocas, de ahí entra a Tabasco y va a cruzar aquí a Oaxaca. Y nos vamos a unir todos como hermanos para lograr esa gran transformación que queremos. Queremos detener el flujo migratorio, que la verdad, a lo mejor muchos gobiernos no les dieron la oportunidad a mucha gente que viene cruzando. Y que este gobierno esté en la construcción de cambiar ese sueño americano por el sueño interoceánico. Y lo vamos a lograr con ustedes, por eso hoy estoy acá y de verdad, de corazón les digo que tienen a una amiga que va a trabajar a favor de que los migrantes sean escuchados, de que sean respetados y que nadie en ningún lugar del mundo pues los trate, porque he escuchado a muchas historias de vida, que sean respetados todos. Esa es nuestra misión más grande que tenemos, de lograr que vivamos todos sin barreras. Y por eso mañana, con todas esas organizaciones, con senadores, vamos a estar defendiendo eso que quieren aplicar aquí en Estados Unidos y que va a afectar a muchos sectores. Y si lo hacemos de la mano juntos, todos, lo vamos a lograr parar, pues esa gran arbitrariedad que quieren hacer. Pero no solamente aquí, también en México. Y pues les deseo que hoy sea una reunión con todas y todos de corazón. Estamos aquí con ustedes.
A lot of work to been a lot of collaboration. Tenemos que seguir juntos con México, Estados Unidos, porque al fin de todo es nuestra familia. So I'll continue with the program. So first of all, I would like to thank our sponsors, Ultimate, as well as JP Morgan Chase, for the opportunity for the Chamber to continue its programs. And Faces of Resilience is a signature program that's near and dear to my heart, only because I am Latina, and every day we go through trials and tribulations, and our stories resonate with one another. So we have some phenomenal women who are with us today who are going to share some golden nuggets. They're going to share how they have reinvented through their stories, through their careers, through family challenges. And so I'll start with welcoming Cristina Sanchez, who's our moderator. Let's give it for Cristina. And she is on a transformation to making global art accessible to the world. So thank you for being with us. And our next speaker is Claudia Acevedo, co-owner of Century 21 Logan, and also NARA president for Los Angeles chapter. And here's a woman who doesn't need any introduction, Ana Salceda. I would say she's our Latina leader. Lastly, entrepreneur and State Farm representative, while she has her own agency, Ina Alcaraz. State Farm, and welcome. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Cristina. And then we can share it.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to Olivia. And I have to tell you, when you say LA Latino Chamber, you know it's going to be a party. So I personally want to welcome everybody. But first, I'm going to translate everything that Diputada said. So I'm going to start with Diputada, bienvenida. Nos da mucho gusto que nos acompañe y viva México. Ojalá que su estancia en Los Ángeles sea placentera y que el cariño de los angelinos lo reciba y lo regrese a Oaxaca. Y nos vemos allá pronto, ¿ok? This series, Anna called me one day. It was the middle of a pandemic. Obviously, you remember that COVID-19 gets behind us, but it really isn't. It's here to stay. We talked about resiliency because I think so many of us were going through so much in so many different ways. Our children, our parents. What do we do? What do we not do? Do we stay open? Do we close? Frontliners. What do we do, etc. And Anna actually was one that was a virtual. It was the first time we brought together a series of women, and now it's become a series, and it's my pleasure to moderate these amazing women and tell their stories. So the theme is resiliency, rebuilding through resiliency, and that I think means a lot to a lot of us. So my first question, open question to all of you, what does resiliency mean to each one of you?
I think for me, resilience is you're just gonna do what your heart tells you to do, and you're gonna find a way to do it. There should be no fear, and although there could be some doubt, right? But always understand that things will happen for you and not to you. So, and it's just getting through it. And I always say that's just a time and space at that one moment. But once you start to push through, it just feels natural. Yeah, this was for me. And you look back and you're just like, oh, I did that. I really did that. Through hard times, I think you feel it even better. And when you do it for other people, it feels even greater. So I always find that resilience is better when you're doing it in an act of service. And at the end, it's actually for you too as well.
God is a realtor, so we'll get into her career specifically and how difficult it has been in her industry. Anna.
Resiliency to me is everything we are about. You don't really think about it, you do it. You know, we live it, we breathe it, it's in our soul, it's in our heart, you know, and to me, resiliency is for me to, even to be still sometimes, and I'm not really good at that, but it was the best time for me to reboot, to listen, to understand that there is so much more ahead of me if I would just humble myself and be able to figure out that the most important thing you could do is, enduring resiliency, is be true to self. You know, sometimes, you know, we talk a lot about the imposter syndrome. Many women, especially women, we need to be somebody for somebody. But in resiliency, you are who you are, and it needs to be for self. And so it has given us a really beautiful light, especially during this time, as Christina said, for us to all, you know, really find ourselves again and realize, you know, where we are in life, is that what we want to continue to do? And it gives us an opportunity again, you know, to seek the truth and to understand there is many, many times, and most times in all our lives, there is so much more ahead of us than behind us. So thank you for asking that question.
Gracias, Ana.
Hi, everyone. So for me, resiliency is really that moment in time when everything seems like you have no control, but really stepping into your power and realizing that you actually are in control. And it's a mindset shift from being the victim to being the victor, and you're the one that's going to write that narrative.
And it's great to go last because they've said everything I want to say. But I'm going to add to that because I completely agree with that. It is about being the victor. We're warriors, we're women, and part of our job is to really help lead, for me, my family, to lead our communities, to lead the team that I have in my office. And we have doubts, and we have lots of uncertainties, and oftentimes questioning ourselves, questioning am I doing the right thing in the right moment. And at the end, honestly, being true to yourself and just doing it in spite of the doubt, doing it in spite of what you think you can and can't do. Because you know what? We're gonna fail. We're gonna fail, and we need to be okay with that. I failed so many times, and I love it because they're like amazing stories. Like I look back now, and I think these are like wonderful lessons that I now have been able to share with my kids, to show them that there's no shame in that, because in the moment, you don't feel like that. And it's okay, and it's okay to feel that, and it's okay to grow from that. And it's wonderful to have this like amazing group, community, hermanas. I was telling Christina that earlier, that I've had so many things that have happened in my life that I am so grateful to my friends, to my family, to the community that has supported me and loved me in spite of my blemishes, in spite of all the things that, you know, that have happened. And so I just am grateful for that. So completely concur with these lovely ladies.
Thank you, all of you. I think I had a boss who would tell me, what are you doing in the dash of your life? And I said, what does that mean? So when you're born, 1963 in my case, the dash is your life, and then it's your death year. It's like that line that is your life. What are you doing? I'm like, well, that's a really heavy question. I was going to ask about failures, but I thought that was a very difficult and harsh word to use, because I think that we all learn from the obstacles, and I want to hear from each of you, because if I talk about my failures, we'll be here all day, by the way. But they've been lessons, because I've gotten better. Tell me about your biggest obstacle, and how did you overcome it? I know we've had many, so tell me about that one. And we don't have to go in this order, by the way. I can give the microphone.
I'm going to take it because mine's and this way it won't take fear off. So my biggest failure is as a mother. Because I went to our corporate headquarters. I've been with State Farm for 35 years, so there's a lot of you here that are not even that. But I've been with State Farm for 35 years, and I've had like so many careers. And when I went to corporate, I thought, oh my God, I hit the job lotto. I was traveling, I had national responsibilities, and a budget. I was giving money away. It was job lotto. But where I failed was as a mother, because I was traveling 70 to 80% of the time. For those of you that travel, know that it's not easy. Work-life balance, my friends, does not exist. you have to create priorities, and sometimes we prioritize the wrong thing because it's what we need to do in the moment. And I had, at the end of my corporate tour, I got a divorce. But it wasn't the divorce that hurt me. It was my son telling me, Mom, I'm gonna stay with my dad. I'm gonna stay with my dad because you don't love me. You love your job. And that wasn't true. And being raised by a single mom, what I thought I was doing was giving them all the things that I didn't have growing up. But now I realize that my biggest failure was as a mom.
I'm gonna chime in on that one because the young lady just sat in front of us, and that's my eldest. Her name is Jackie, and I felt exactly the same way. I used to live on the 405 because I traveled to LAX from the San Fernando Valley, okay? The times that I felt the guilt because I wasn't there for a classroom, a project, the basketball game, and the times they told you how much they hate you, I can tell you that they turn out okay and they love you more than anything. So I'll go on with the question I asked. Your biggest moment that taught you something?
I'd have to say, well, with me being first generation, I'm the oldest of 8. Always had a lot of pressure early on at an age to be the right example, show our siblings, our cousins, take the family, the next generation to the next level. And I felt that there was always that expectation. I couldn't fail, I couldn't mess up. And I grew up in my family's businesses, which was incredible, just being able to see the hard work that they're doing and participate in it. And my mom got into the real estate industry, and that's really what changed the trajectory for our entire family. And I felt, I was 18, I got my real estate license, and I was like, who's gonna buy a house for me? I'm just like graduated high school. And Mom's like, just do the work, they're gonna, everyone's gonna figure out that you do good work, right? So just do good work and follow up with your clients. And I did a great job. I did really well I was going to college, I was being a realtor, I had 3 properties. And again, failure is like perspective, right? It's the perspective that we have on ourselves and what we think we really failed at. But when the market started to crash in 2008 was a big one, but we were already feeling it in 2007 when my tenants lost their jobs and their families had nowhere to go. And I at the time then picked up a job at T-Mobile just to pay the bills in the mall. Like, it was so hard. Working retail is an extremely challenging job. But slowly, one by one, I was losing my properties, and that was just a moment where I felt like I had no control. I had no control of the environment around me. And at that time, I thought that was like my biggest failure. But really, that's what pivoted me into really wanting to make the change so that would never happen again. So it's all about perspective, and that failure for me was what drove me to do the amazing work that I get to do now. And I mean, again, it's all about perspective. But then during that time, it's just like all of our family was in that same sinking ship. We couldn't help each other. But I think at the end of the day, it really ends up becoming a blessing because it gives you perspective of really what is important. And at the end of the day, my family's safe, they're healthy. And that is where I think that perspective helped me.
Shout out to your parents, 8, and to you for being the eldest, because you end up being the mini mom in many ways, right?
My greatest failure was men. And I'll talk about I allowed them to get in my head. In my life, I was the first of this and the first of that. And I was brought into community and to leadership through affirmative action. So when I was placed in a position that was very important, I also had the opportunity to celebrate me for a very small time because there were so many men waiting for me to fail. and many a times I did. But that was my greatest opportunity to, it was always about proving them wrong, not so much about building me up. I said, I'm gonna prove them wrong, I'm gonna figure this out, I'm gonna, win. And, it's something that I think was very cultural too. I didn't get to talk to my mom about it because she was a major warrior. She just did whatever it took. Many people within the community, I had a group of mentors who were outstanding. They were older women, and they either chose their profession, lost their marriage, never married, and were so hard on me, harder than the women. When I went up against 5 different men for the first woman in the country to run a YMCA, and that would be the Eastern YMCA. The last time I got vetted, this woman asked me, what does your husband think about you taking this job? And it shocked me because I thought, would they ever ask a man this? What does your wife think if you take this job? But it just so happened on the way to work that morning, I asked her. We had just married, and my mother was the first woman to say, Mija, you just married a man with 4 children. That's your job. This is not something you should do. And so I'm thinking, Mom, this is what I need to do. I loved her for it, but that's all she knew. And so I did take the job, and it was really tough. And I had a lot of men constantly telling me I was not going to do it. I couldn't make it. There was nobody else out there doing it. So I had to create my own path to be the best version of what I could be at that time. I failed many, many times, but to your point, it was the best growth that I ever had. So much that it was an inner city YMCA that never did the things that we did. And especially the Association of Men thought that I was going to fail. When I succeeded with a board, an outstanding year, I even failed the community because what they did is they withdrew a lot of the financial support and said, well, now you can stand on your own. So I realized even when I won, I failed. I was failing my community. So I had to be smart enough to know many a times in life, it's really not about you, but it is. It's the path you take. And so when I closed that door, I realized that what's next? It was going to be another battle. And it was very interesting because through life, many of these men that told me I wasn't going to make it, I wasn't good enough, it's a man's world. I happened to marry this man who lives and thrives in a man's world in construction. And many times he would say, okay, I'm going to take you to this meeting, you're just going to sit there. I don't need you to say it. I said, oh, he did not just say that. And he said, money, I'm designing this house, and I'm like, give him more storage space, and give him, I was always the woman behind this. But when I would walk in, the man would say, oh my goodness, Daryl's bringing Anna. And I'm thinking, I have something to say. But I had to realize, Lord God, help me. Don't let me open my mouth if I don't have anything great to say. When I did, I had to bring value to it. And I realized at that point, women do business differently. We think differently, and we need to value that. And so all the mistakes I had and the fails I had were really not. They were my roadmap to just strengthening my ability to see the difference. And I really respect men. Woody, Daryl, I'm so sorry. Many of the men that are in here, well, we do business together. And I realize that if you don't give yourself that voice, if you don't give yourself that value, nobody else will. And so I sit amongst them, and I'm grateful that I can still differ with them and realize that they've got a lot to teach me, and yet I do too. So failures were not a bad thing.
Reminds me how long I've known Anna in my lifetime as well. And I also want to just point out for the men that are here, thank you for being so bold and being able to see us be vulnerable. And yes, men can be part of our failures as well. Anna, the chamber is led by the title president, Daryl Sauceda. However, you just won the Chamber of the Year at the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I owe that to you.
Congratulations, Renata. I think for me, it's been my whole life pattern. I sit here and I heard these ladies, and I'm just like, wow. I think my biggest failure was that I have never chosen myself. Since I was young, I didn't want to be at home. I get coming from a big family. I was the third. I was the last girl, and my brother was a year younger than I was, so I grew up like a tomboy. And it was everything that the boy did, I had to do. And I had to do it better, because I had to protect him too. So I never really chose myself. Even though I was a third, I always was the one that had to take on all my parents' responsibility. Not the oldest. She was like, no, I'm not doing it. But you know, I went to school. I was a certified nurse assistant. I was an EMT. I took courses to take care of kids. I just wanted to get out of the house. Unfortunately, I became a young mom, and I had to take that on too. And then I had a second daughter, and she had cancer, and I had to take on her too. And it was always about taking care of somebody else and never taking care of myself. And it's taken me to be 46 now to finally choose me. And I want to tell you that it's never too late to choose you. And I think this year, I really took it upon myself to say, I want to do something that I'm very passionate about. And I want to take time to know me. Because when I choose, I want to choose and I want to love what I do. I love what I do now, don't get me wrong. I love real estate. I love seeing families happy. I love to see my real estate agents thrive and do what they love. But I want to do something from my corazón and choose me.
I love it. All these stories are amazing. Reinventing yourselves. I reinvented myself several times, by the way. Tell me the one time you reinvented yourself and what was the most significant. Vanessa, we'll start with you.
It was a man. Yeah, so I fell in love really quickly in college and had a great relationship, and we were on a great path, growing together. But then things just started to change. I was making more money. I was, wanting to continue pursuing my career, and I felt that I was just putting so much, just trying to get to a place where he could feel he can contribute. And at the end of the day, I lost myself in really trying to make us work. And your relationship should never take that much work to where you end up losing yourself and saying no to things is because you just don't want to get too far ahead. And for me, it was really shortly after my 30th birthday when I realized that actually when he was engagement ring shopping, when I realized at the end of the day, this is not the partner for me. I knew in my heart, like, this is not the partner that I want to be with. And I didn't really have the best examples growing up. Many of the women in my family were either, if they didn't work, they were stay-at-home moms, and they really were not happy because they were just caretakers. And I mean, nothing to say anything about stay-at-home moms, but they couldn't fulfill their dreams and their ambitions. So the way that I saw it is, as long as you were working, you had independence to make and have power to make those choices. And my parents, unfortunately, my father dealt with alcoholism, so it's like my mom would kick him out, and then he's like, he'd come back and show like he's the best dad ever. And it was this ongoing cycle, and it was the same thing that I would see with my aunts and my uncles. So I didn't really have that example of what a real healthy relationship looked like. So I was in that cycle myself. And when I realized this is not what I want for my life, I chose to get out of it. And I broke up with him, I moved out, and I still had my apartment. And it's crazy because my dad told me in front of all my family, once he found out that I had broke up with him, that I'm gonna be like one of the old ladies in the rancho that's just waiting for their dream doctor to come and save them. Well, guess what? He jumps on my dad. I ended up finding the best partner. Coffee meets bagel plug. And he is the best person. He is the best partner I could have ever imagined. And he's a doctor. The joke's on my dad.
For me, oh gosh. So I said to you, I've been with State Farm for 35 years, but so reinventing myself kind of was in the corporate realm, and the corporate would say to me, oh, you did a great job this year, 2% raise, 4% raise, whatever it was, but they decided the percentage. And having had a career with State Farm, having won that career lotto, I realized that I really wanted to be an entrepreneur. My mom had always been an entrepreneur. I was born in El Salvador, so in El Salvador, she had clothing businesses, she had cooking businesses. She came here, she would do the same, always doing different things. I remember going catering with her at 7, 8, 9, 10. Whatever she did, we all had jobs. And I realized that I wanted to do something for myself. And I remember Anna being there, and I remember giving up the role of giving out those really beautiful large checks to now asking for them because now I'm in sales. But making that career change was really amazing. I realized that what I created within my life was a sense of independence, a sense of having control over my life, of picking myself. And that failure that I talked about, I realized that now I had the time. I realized now I was the one dictating. I was the one that could make decisions about how I wanted to spend my time. You know, people look at me and there's weeks that I work 10-hour weeks or 4-hour weeks. And there's weeks that I work 70-hour weeks or 80-hour weeks or do whatever, and I take phone calls at night. I mean, I got a phone call the other day at 2 in the morning because a car drove through one of my clients' business. And so, like State Farm. Of course I show up because they're friends and I want to help. You know, work buckets a little bit. But for me, that redesigning my life was scary as all hell. I gotta say, it was scary. I mean, I had a pretty comfortable salary to starting day one with that. And knowing that every year it's about that, having to build it and build it and build it. And now the market is so crazy. Those of you that live in California know how crazy shopping for insurance is right now. And that affects me. Right now I can't sell, so my products, I can't even sell them because we're in moratorium. And so every day I am grateful beyond words for the opportunity that I've had, but I realize it's something that I've had to do, and I had to take that gamble, that leap of faith for me. To be able to have that time with family, to be able to say what my value was. So,
Thank you, Ina. Ana, perdón.
Sure. My most important time to reinvent myself was one where I'll never forget. It was the day that God just came into my life, you know, and He took control of everything. You know, it's a beautiful thing because I said I wasn't going to get emotional, but it's such a beautiful thing, and there's no time like now for anyone who doesn't have Him in your life. I thought I did it my way. I screwed up righteously. I failed righteously, you know, and I thought if I'm going to do it right, I wanted to make sure I was going to take charge of my life with my God, knowing that He had a greater calling for me, a greater will on my life, and it has just been abundantly, you know, full of joy. And for all of you who know me, you know, I just wake up, as Ina said, so full of gratitude because He is so faithful. And even when things are wrong, I make sure that that's even when I pray even more. I pray for my family, I pray for all of you, I pray for this world. And I just think, you know, many a times, it's those hard times that you need to understand that there's always something better out there, something greater. And so it's just really been a beautiful time for me. It's beyond pivoting, reinventing, being resilient. It's being the best I could be because I have a God who thinks so much of me and He's so faithful. So anyway, that's what is my being and what that keeps me going. And I am eternally grateful for what is happening in my life today.
And thank you for sharing that light with all of us, by the way.
You know, I like reading your posts in the morning. Always giving great insight on being grateful. Thank you, Anna. I think for myself, it was a moment that I decided not to be a dog breeder, but a realtor. So, you know, I talked about my daughter having cancer. During that time, my ex-husband and I decided we were going to get a divorce. And I did 2 years in the hospital with her, so I didn't have an income. When we were released and finally coming back home, I was home with 2 kids. and I didn't have a career, I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything. My job was taking care of my daughter. And one of my friends gifted me a dog, and he gifted me a English bulldog. And I took it to the park, and I was walking in, and some guy came up to me and he said, "Hey, Claudia, how much do you charge if, I was to buy your dog semen?" And I was like, "Huh? What? What are you talking about?" And then, so it just like ignited something in my brain, and I went home and I started doing all the internet research, and next thing you know, lo and behold, I was a dog breeder for 6 years. And I took care of puppies, I sold puppies around the world, I sold semen around the world, I did C-sections with veterinarians, my kids, I built like a fortress for me and my kids. Like, I just wanted to be home with them after everything that had happened. But then a man came into my life and he was like, "I want to go to Vegas." And I was like, "I can't, I have like 3 kids. Well, I have 2 kids, and then I have 25 dogs. I can find sitters for the kids, but I can't find sitters for the dogs. And plus, I think so-and-so says their dog's going to be here, and I have to ship semen out. Like, and he was just like, what? And, it was something that I really wanted to be with somebody, and I really felt like I found a soulmate, and I wanted to go on this love journey. And I thought to myself, you know what, I can change. I've done it so many times, why can't I do it again? And I did it. And I'm really happy with the choice that I did. I sold my dogs, my daughters were sad. But at the end of the day, we were talking about this with them, and they're like, "Mom, I really miss the puppy breath, but I really love the way your life has really unfolded, and you get to see the world." So it was a great reinvention for myself.
That's a great story. I think we're going to need to do a session on shipping semen around the world.
It's a process.
One of the things you notice from all of us as we tell our story is we get emotional, and that we always apologize for being emotional and for crying. And I want to talk about vulnerability. Those of you who know me, I grew up in Pacoima, grew up in a little city called Mexico City, and immigrated to the United States. I remember getting married, getting divorced, losing my house, having my 3 kids, and I remember telling myself, I cannot cry in front of my kids because it makes me weak. It makes me weak, I have to tell them everything is good. And then my therapist said, you need to show your children that you're human and that you're dealing with a circumstance, and they're going to know how you're dealing with it. And crying is a good outlet in doing so. So vulnerability, why are we so opposed to being so vulnerable? And tell me, is it cyclical? Is it your family? Any of you?
I think you don't ever want to be that vulnerable where men think you're weak, and that's a shame, because I've married a man who just really respects who I am, and I'm always at battle. I get up and I'm equipped. I'm like, okay, next. It's just like you constantly always have this battle regimen on, right? And it's not a bad thing, but I think that it's just our culture, and if it's not, it's protection, and it's your own personal protection. And it looks like the majority of, up here have been married, 2 times, and I promised that this time would be right. I chose that man. I said, I'm going to choose my husband, and I'm going to cut the deal with him, and I'm going to make sure I'm not going to really love you all that much, I don't have to go on top of it. And, lo and behold, God had somebody for me like this man. And it's just really a beautiful thing to know that when your truth is something that allows you to surrender and just be, happy and celebrate the best part of life is, just, I don't even remember the question, Christina. And I'm vulnerable.
So many faces of Anna. Like Anna. I have really enjoyed the vulnerable Anna, by the way. When she opens up and it's just the raw her. So anyways,
Vanessa.
Yes. You know, I think with me just always being the oldest, always having to hold it together, I think culturally, it's never really been about what, I guess I've always been so focused on making sure everyone else is okay that I didn't want to put off that I needed help or that I needed support. Even though, like, I go into my shower and just cry and let it out. Because you're right, letting those emotions out is a healthy way to allow yourself to just expel that energy. Because otherwise you hold it up, you build it up, and it ends up like really impacting your health. And luckily, I think even now, just more with like mental health awareness, making sure that you're putting yourself as a priority, all of that is extremely important. Vulnerability, like in the physical sense, right? Now, in regards to vulnerability when it comes to like leadership, I really appreciate that. Some of my favorite managers or leaders are those that truly show that they're human, that they're just like us. And also they provide space and hold space for everyone else while they're navigating some of the most challenging times. And I think that's the most important thing that we can do, is to just honor everyone else's vulnerability when you show it to us, is to hold that space. We sometimes don't even need to say anything, but just let them know that they're being heard and they're seen.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Vanessa, no, that was awesome. It's definitely cultural. I think it's just, I think as women, it's being, you know, being raised by a single mom, there was no not being strong. You had to be strong because it's, you just fight on. It was never about can I do it, it was how do I do it? How does it get done? That was always the question. And so to allow yourself to be vulnerable was just not an option. But I realized, and I've realized like over the years, that it is actually probably my biggest weakness. It has been. Because when you're not, when you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, you're not allowing people to give what you want to give to others. It's taking that male, and I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but you're taking on that male trait when it shouldn't always be there. It's okay to receive. As much as we want to give, we have to allow receiving. And it's so important from a leadership standpoint, and I see it with my team, that sometimes you have to listen to what they say. And when we talk about listening, it's really active listening. And I love how you said it, you have to hold space, because it isn't what you say, it's how you are in that moment with them. People feel you. And being vulnerable is something I feel like I'm such a freaking late bloomer. It's like everything I'm learning older now, but I'm gonna be so good. Husband number 3, 4, and 5 is very much person with me, is all I gotta say. I'm ready.
I think that was an invitation.
It's very complicated now. I think for me, it just wasn't taught. I think vulnerability is not just something that you just do. It's actually taught how to talk your emotions out. I think being first generation, my parents migrating here, they were probably in their 20s when they migrated here. They were here to survive. And I believe they put us on that mode, like survival mode. So there was no time to say, I don't feel, if those words came out of my mouth, like, yo no quiero, or estoy ¿qué? Like, it was like, no, you don't have time to feel. So it was like, you gotta get it done. Hazlo o si no. So it was always hazlo, and I think that was something that was so ingrained that it wasn't until I got a divorce that I understood that I needed to be vulnerable, because I didn't understand how to communicate and I didn't understand how to hear, how to listen. So how was that relationship ever going to work? And then I learned it with my children, who now are older adults and tell me, Mom, do you remember when I was this? And I'm like, no, I don't remember. They're like, that's because you never listened to us. And I think now I take the time, I respond to their text messages, I listen to what they're saying, I put them on my agenda. So I'm actively now listening, and in that, I've learned to become vulnerable with them. Because there's been times where they're telling me things and they're crying, and I'm just like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I hug them? Do I not? Do I do this? But like she said, it's just listening to them. And then now in return, I feel safe with them. And I can do the same with them. And maybe not in all aspects of my life, but if I'm feeling sad because I'm remembering, Tia, and they see me crying, they're like, oh, why are you crying? Oh, because, Tia this or Tia that. They can understand that vulnerabilities doesn't always mean that it's always here, but it can be happiness, it can be sadness, it can be a sense of an emotion, and it's okay to do it.
You all sound like such amazing parents. I know, Vanessa, you're not a mom yet, but you're a dog mom. Okay, yes, that's very, very important. We've been talking about relationships, and we've attributed it to a partner. But in our lifetime, we have family, we have friends. And as I've grown, I've also realized that as a rocket goes up, it starts to shed things off. It's like a lot of friends have shed off my life because they haven't grown with me, or they haven't seen the same values, or they've betrayed me. And those friends don't deserve to be my friends. But there are people in my life that really saw who I was, and unfortunately, I have to tell you, there's been men in my life who saw me in my career, who were my mentors. Eddie Dominguez, anybody remember Eddie? He worked at Channel 22, then at Telemundo in San Francisco. He's happily retired in La Peñita, Nayarit right now. Who were those people in your life that made a difference for you? I'm sure there's many, but talk about one, and or several.
Man, the pressure is on. Honestly, as I said before, there's a community. I have an amazing community, but I am going to talk about one dear, dear girlfriend of mine. Her name's Charlene, Cubana. She taught me so much in my life. She taught me, even though I'm an immigrant, remember that my English is a second language for me. I went through this period of time when I forgot that I didn't speak Spanish, so someone spoke to me and said, oh, no, yo no hablo español, and I would get embarrassed and all this stuff, and I remember going to Mission College in the Valley, and she blares the music, and we've shared so much in our lives, and she's been married for 40 years, so she's the success story, and everything I've learned from her has been amazing, but more importantly, everything that she has done for me. She listens. When something is happening in my life, good, bad, or indifferent, she is always there. When I question myself, she is there to pick me up. And it's never been a competition, and she has an agency like I do, but it's never a competition. It has always been about support. And I think the women and men in my life that truly have made a difference is really about that. It's valuing people. One of the things that I treasure about what I do is I work with people, is that I realize and value that every single person that comes into my life adds. They completely add value. And I hope that I'm able to do that. But what I appreciate about her is that she never lets anything significant in my life ever pass by. And when I've gone through those man issues, she's always been there, and she never makes me feel bad. She never makes me feel like I'm a failure. She says that it's your choice, it's about your life, it's about doing what is best for you, protecting Ina, and it's nice to hear that. I think one of my biggest fears as a person was always abandonment when I left El Salvador, that my father didn't come get me. And that's always been in the back of my head. And so for me, that's always nourished me to have someone just have my heart. And so.
Imagínate, salvadoreña y cubana, cuidado.
When you said that, two people come to mind in addition to Daryl. But it is two women I always say, if I ever have to go to battle, these are the two I would take. I would take Deborah Vilad and I would take Betty Del Rio. These women have been with me all my life, and whatever has happened in my life, we have gone full circle. Actually, Betty and I attended our 50 high school reunion. That's not funny, but because, oh my God, is it funny? We got to do math and it was hilarious, but you know, in life, how lucky were we, how fortunate were we that we attended it, but these two women I love with all my heart. They are true, spirited women who have always gone through all my trials and my joys and still are in my life. And most importantly, they have helped me be a better friend to both of them, and I thank God for them.
Amen for that. For Betty, whom we all know, by the way.
I think for me, it'll have to be my dad. He's not here with us any longer on earth, but I feel him every day. I think for him, even though he was really hard on me, he really instilled that same triunfadora inside of me. He taught me how to be a warrior. He taught me even that masculine side that maybe sometimes I wish I didn't have, but I know that he knew that I needed it. That armor, that fearless, like you can do this. Like I think about all the careers that I've done in my life, and I'm like, how did I do that? But it was because I saw it in my father. Él nunca se dejó de vencer. Hasta el último momento, como murió, mi mamá dice, murió en paz, mija, no te preocupes. Murió a gusto. And I feel like I live, even though he's not here, he inspired so much of my success, and in my failures, I always shared it with him, even as an adult, and he always listened. And when I always say like a true daddy's girl, I was a true daddy's girl. I can talk to him about women's cycle stuff. He would take me bra shopping. He would drop me off at parties. I would tell him I really want that lipstick. He would buy it for me. He did so many things for me, and I love him for all the stuff that he taught me. And I always carry him with me, and he's been my inspiration.
And we love him for you, by the way, for bringing you into this world. Vanessa?
Just hearing you say those stories, it's so beautiful because they're not here with us, but we still feel them and they still guide us. And I think for me, it comes down to my grandparents. They were the ones that left everything that they had and came here to the U.S. for a better life for us. And my grandpa, Lupe, he has a tombstone of our family tree. And his words there, he would always tell us, would be "Échale ganas." I mean, words that I live by every day. And really the way I see it is that even when I am in rooms and I'm the only one, and fear kind of sets in, or imposter syndrome sets in, when I remind myself that, that's when that mindset shift changes. And I then just really step into my power, because I know that if they made it as far as they did, not even speaking the language here, running businesses, building what they did for us, I mean, what I go through is nothing compared to what they had to go through. But I'm just so grateful that as basic, or I don't even want to say basic, but it's just those moral values that are instilled in us that really end up driving us, those little consejos that we live with as we navigate life, the challenges, the ups and downs, are just special moments, I think, that of triumph that we get to look back and say, like, we've survived 100% of our worst days. And it is very powerful.
Never do I forget how lucky we are that our parents immigrated before us, even though I had that immigration journey coming at 12 years old, and that's a whole different story. But Ina, you already talked about your...
I already did,
You were the first one, yeah, I was going to say. I want to talk about, and Vanessa, you touched upon this, Latinas, females. I feel like two strikes against us. You can look at it that way. when we hear about a moment you were at a table in a situation when you were being looked at, it was expected of you, and you just didn't feel like you belonged right away. Tell me about that moment and how you overcame it.
For me, it was definitely when I took one of my first steps in our corporate headquarters in Bloomington, Illinois. Latina, California, giant hoops, you know, racy Latina. They like saying all those things, but they don't like it in corporate America. They want you to have a certain look. I mean, I did bring a jacket, I took it off. And I've learned to embrace smaller earrings. But I remember going, and I remember feeling it. Feeling the looks, feeling the judgment, feeling, not even knowing. I remember going to a bank meeting. We had State Farm Bank at that time, and I remember being in a meeting and they were talking about, oh, well, we can open accounts only for residents and this, and I'm like, no. Or no, citizens, only citizens, and I'm like, no. And it was just, but they look at, I remember the judgment. I remember them thinking, like, why are you here? Like, it was foreign. Like, they didn't quite understand me. And it was a dual lesson. It was a dual lesson in the sense that I felt out of place, but I realized I needed to be there. I needed to be there because I had a voice. I needed to be there because they needed to see different perspective. I was there. I was learning as much as they were learning about my culture. I was learning about the corporate culture, and we can't forget that. I think that I learned so much in terms of process and understanding that things take time, which I don't have patience normally. It was a mix. So, but I definitely initially felt like a fish out of place, just being there. I mean, I remember an analogy. No, I won't go there. I won't go there. Inappropriate. But nonetheless, it was definitely being at the corporate headquarters. It was just stepping in and realizing that I had to, as much as I needed to assert my position there, I needed to accept the boundaries, the confines, the rules of engagement that do exist there. But I will say that I learned a lot from a vice president that I worked with, because when she would walk into the room, it was always assumed that the woman would be the one to serve the water, to serve the coffee, even though they were executives. And she never took that role. And I was so happy that she was somebody that I was able to look to emulate, to really grow and learn from. And so that for me was awesome to know that as a woman, I have a place, and it isn't just, you know, barefoot and pregnant or whatever else they want us to be. I choose that role.
So, working at JP Morgan has been an incredible experience. And when they took over Washington Mutual in 2009, or 2008, that was when I started my career here. And it's so interesting because I'm like, East Coast Bank coming into the West Coast culture, oh, things are probably not gonna, you know, work out as well.
In the downturn of the economy, too.
In the downturn of the economy. So I remember, honestly, I've been so grateful just to always be curious and always be willing how I can help my partners. And I feel like that has helped me just really build out and navigate a large firm like ours. And there was a moment, we have so many amazing programs that we have, and there was a moment where we were sponsoring, it's called the Fellowship Initiative. It's still around. We're actually celebrating our 10th year, and we're going to start the new cohort. But for the kickoff of LA, we had all of these executives come into the market, and they did a circle of all the mentors. And they're like, okay, everyone say which university you came from, or you graduated from. Princeton, Yale, Stanford, Fresno State. I was like, there was myself, and it's so funny because there was one other Fresno State. We were the only ones that came from state schools. The only ones out of like 50. And it was just an exciting, you know, I was like nervous. I'm like, okay, well, am I really gonna fit in when the time came to me? But it's just so amazing, really, because I had that moment when I went to the corporate headquarters in New York. Actually, our headquarters is being rebuilt right now, but it was 383 Madison. And I actually posted this on my LinkedIn. So if you ever look on my LinkedIn post, there's a post of me there in New York in front of our JP Morgan Chase headquarters. And I wrote about how that moment and milestone for me was just not necessarily making me feel like I made it, but just a realization of how far I've come to get there. And I wanted to show every other Latina that you can do this too. And it was just such a special moment that I like printed the picture and everyone's like, I thought you moved to New York or, or whatnot. But it was just pretty funny now looking back, but just being able to have that moment and how far I came from being in that room with all of the Ivy League mentors to then being there in the headquarters and now just having so much influence in our current role with the mission that we're doing now to really support our Latino community is just, I feel like a full circle, right? It's just incredible.
Olivia, how are we doing on time?
We're doing good.
I think mine has just been years and years of being in a position as a community leader. One of my priorities was to continually fundraise. And many a times it was to banks in corporate America. And when I would sit down, I had already had this intuition. I had this gift of knowing this is not going to happen, because they read me. I was this brown young woman who was representing East LA or the inner cities, and they had a marginal part of support. They already had their framework of maybe, corporate responsibility, knowing this is all they're going to give. And I thought, first of all, I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to kill them with kindness. I'm going to know what, it's going to be very difficult for them to tell me no. And so I constantly was always prepared when I went in. I knew more than they knew about their own company. I would read their annual reports, even know it, because I would go to her for funding. She was very generous to us. But I made sure I did our homework, and many a times they would say, how did you know that? And I said, I read your annual report. I would make sure, where are the priorities? How do they match what we're doing? And so many a times, many a times, I felt, the inconsistent way of them feeling like, they were just judging us, prejudging us. It was very difficult to work through that. And I realized I wasn't going to buy into it. I was going to rise above it. And many times, we created great partnerships. I was able to become, mutual friends and, help them understand this community, this world we live in belongs to all of us, and we succeeded together. And it was just, like you said, a mindset. I shifted many people's mindset because I wanted them to know we're in this together. I succeed, you succeed. If you succeed, tell me how I can help you do your job, kind of thing. And it's been a beautiful journey. It never ends, as you know. Things have changed, but if you're in the game, be in the game, know the game, play the game, because you can win the game. And it's constant, and it's tiring, and it's a commitment you make, but it's a beautiful reality that, you gotta play. You gotta play, or,
I dare anybody to say no to this woman.
I don't think anybody can. I think for me, it's funny that you say that. I have 3 daughters, well 4, and I always tell them, you gotta work twice as hard, because number 1, you're a woman, number 2, you're Latina, and you want powerful roles, you're gonna have to work really hard to get there. I think for me, it was one time when I was in corporate America, and I was an administrator, and I was there in a position for about 6 months. I was an inside sales administrator. I learned so much about the company in such a quick, it was really fast. The 6 months went by so fast. But my boss actually told me, hey, Claudia, there's going to be a position where we can almost be at the same level. Just it's going to be in another office. Why don't you apply? I will write a letter of recommendation for you because I really feel you can do this position. I said, sure, all right. I applied for the job, and then he called me one night and he said, I can't write that letter. And I said, why? He thought, because my boss told me that if I write that letter, then I will most likely lose my position. Because it's a boys club. And then you're a girl and you're Latina. There's just no way I can do it. And he told me, he's like, look, I advise you to either A, like, if you don't like what's happening, like, let it run through, or you can resign, or I don't know, but now you have a target. And they made it very, very difficult for me after I applied for that position. I had constant harassment from human resources to, they were timing me how long I was going to the restroom, they had me do all these things. At the end, I did end up resigning, but I ended up still blowing the whistle. My boss actually blew the whistle first, and then he had me come in. He decided to resign his position because he felt it wasn't right what had happened. So I think for us, it was something that we needed to do. It took a toll on my life because I needed to attend hearings. I know it took a toll on his. But I feel that it opened up the floodgates for other women to take on those positions, and it was much needed.
Well, thank you, applause for your courage. Unfortunately, we still see that this day and age, not so far in a very close past. I was organizing a meeting company-wide, and I'm a production person, so we're determining speakers, and it was man, and I just raised my hand and I'm like, hey, can we put some females in there? And the first thing they say, oh, there she goes with her feminism, and it's like, no, it's about really giving an opportunity and putting the right people there, and we have lots of them, so always be mindful, never be afraid to speak your truth and tell them what they're doing wrong. Your future. Ina, you said that you have learned so much, and you're very wise right now. What's next for you?
Transforming again. I feel like I'm at a stage in my life that I want to prioritize myself. I want to prioritize myself. I want to travel more. I want to love the person that I am, love the people that I'm with, just experience. I feel like I put my life on hold for people. I've done things that I've had to for our obligations, so now it's a little me time. So travel and transform and maybe figure out a new gig. Who knows? Maybe I'll start raising dogs. Who knows? Sperm. I want to ship the sperm.
Well, I was going to close with something else, but yeah.
Wait, what was the question?
What's your future?
Oh, what's next? Or, okay, well, I feel like, I don't really know what's next. I really feel that right now I'm enjoying where I'm at. I'm a newlywed, just got married last year. We're beginning our family planning, and I think for us it's really just identifying, well, we already have our goals in place, but it's just like executing on those goals and really living our dreams, because life is so short, and literally you don't even realize how fast things can change. And I think for me it's really just more focusing on the present and being really present, but then also not losing sight of what brings me joy and fulfillment, because we get so caught up in high performing jobs that sometimes we end up devoting too much there and not enough everywhere else. So just making that assessment and figuring out where I want to really spend my time.
Amazing, Vanessa. I see 8 kids in your life. I know.
I think I see, and I hate to say this, but it's true. I don't see Daryl and I retiring very soon. I mean, there's something about, as I mentioned, being in the game and loving what you do, and when you wake up and there's purpose in what you do, and you impact people the way we do. I love the fulfillment. I love, I do a lot of talking to God, and I just think, you kind of have to be careful what you ask for, because I always ask him, use me up, Lord, use me up, and I'm like, I'm really tired today, but just like, use me up. But the thing is, You know, we go to sleep exhausted. We wake up ready to hit another day because that's who we are. And I mean that, you know, we do need to slow down. I do want to travel more, you know, and it's hard because he's always about the next deal. This guy can run circles around everybody, and he's so good at it. And I love him for it, but at the same time, I want to make sure if I don't ground us in a way where we can stay healthier, we can enjoy each other more, you know, I'd be crazy not to, you know, create that opportunity for us to do that. I'm very grateful, but at the same time, we've got so much to do still. I do know that. And I look forward to it. And I look forward to all of you being in our lives. I just love the family we have here with family and friends. So I appreciate it.
We should all be so lucky to work and do something that we love, by the way. So thank you, Ana, for that. Claudia.
I think for me, in the future, what the future looks like is to continue to use my skills, my leadership skills, and even my mom's skills, my wife's skills, to help, you know, our generations to follow. I think for me is to show them that evolving, changing, it doesn't have to require so much work, but it's needed, and that we're paving the way. I think for now, you know, we talked about me being in leadership for NARA. When I took on the chapter, all I thought about was my board, all my board members, they all need to be leaders. Because when it comes time for the next one, I want to leave it to the next leader. And I think for me, that's what I see in my future, to continue paving the way. I mean, with amazing ladies like you guys and you in the audience, I think for me, that's what my future continues to be, is just paving the way.
Watch out for Claudia. She spearheads the Los Angeles chapter for the National Association of Hispanic Realtors. And congratulations. Okay, we're going to wrap up. We're going to play a little game. And you ever done rapid response? 4 questions for each of you. Claudia, for you. What is your guilty pleasure?
Fun.
What is your go-to karaoke song?
Like a version from Madonna.
What is your last Google search? How to ship semen.
I actually looked up a realtor.
What is your last impulse buy?
Dresses.
Okay, you're next.
First one?
Which celebrity annoys you the most? Kardashians?
Next.
What is the weirdest thing your pet does?
Oh my goodness, how long do I have? English bulldog, by the way. She has a big attitude. She has a big attitude problem, and she doesn't know how to walk. We have to drag her everywhere we take her.
If your pet could talk, what would she say about you?
Because she's so close to Daryl, she would probably do a lot of cussing.
What mythical creature would you believe was real? No, unicorn. Okay, Vanessa. What is the cringiest thing you did as a teenager?
Cringiest?
Cringiest.
Perm my hair. And I got braces at the same time, so I made myself look like that.
What non-existent job do you wish existed?
What non-existent job? Okay, well, just because I think this is really cool, I would love to, well, it's all in space. Like, I'd love to manage a hotel in space.
I love that. Do you kill bugs where you find yourself taking them? Do you kill bugs and find yourself taking them outside?
Yes.
Okay. Ina, do you prefer driving or flying?
Fine.
Would you rather travel to the past or to the future?
Future.
Do you prefer social time or alone time?
Social.
Are you more of a thinker or a doer?
Doer.
Street smarts or book smarts?
Combination.
Viva Salvador.
Viva Salvador.
I got the easy one.
their wisdom, their vulnerability, and allowing us to see that, you know, we do have some things that we share together. You know, what can it be? I think all of it. So I want to thank Christina, Claudia, Anna, Vanessa, and Ina for their time with us today. And before we kind of wrap up, there's something that we didn't mention. Mr. Chairman, if you can kind of come up and...
We all get a check?
Well, I guess everybody knows that we work very hard to be bestowed with this award of being Chamber of the Year. So, I mean, it's a lot of work. I want to thank and I want to thank the ladies for allowing us to get into their world, right? And I raised 4 daughters, so and I'm happy to see that there's, and I know Anna included is also a daddy's girl. So right off the daddy's girl, so you know, we got something besides transporting semen to anyway, I want to thank everybody for your time, and I guess we're going to adjourn.
And please join us at the reception outside, so thank you, everyone.
Okay.